Budweiser.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners meeting of October 28th, 2021. This meeting will now come to order. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Lundy.
Here.
And we have Casey Saunders, our Budget Director.
Oh,
here
I'm
as well.
sorry.
Hi, Casey.
Casey Saunders, Budget Director.
Good morning. Okay, we'll begin with budget hearings. Our first presentation is from Common Pleas Judge Cook, and he has brought with him Sherry Clauser, Court Administrator, and Deb Tansey, Deputy Court Administrator. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chairman Hung, thank you for having us, and hope you are all well. I'm going to say honor to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the judges and to give you some information about the status of the Common Pleas Court, what we've done, what we're looking for, and what we anticipate for next year. As you indicated, I am here on behalf of the judges for Judge Ewers. I'm acting administrative judge for the purposes of today. I'm going to ask you to spend about 4 or 5 minutes with Ms. Sherry Clauser, who is our administrator, who's going to give you some background, and then our court deputy administrator, Ms. Tansey, will go into some details relative to our budget. Our presentation should not last more than about 10 minutes, after which we'll answer any questions that the commissioners might have. I think you'll find some of the, particularly from Ms. Tansey, the numbers of how our budget works, where we're funded, and what we're doing. Particularly, I've asked you to pay attention to one of the slides regarding Lorraine County compared to 2 other counties of similar size. I believe Butler and Stark, which you'll find, I think, pretty interesting. So at this point, without further ado, I would ask the Commission to hear from Ms. Clauser.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to provide a quick update for you of the last year. Our court currently has 104 employees. We have 6 judges, as Judge Cook noted. 3 of our judges have specialized dockets that have continued despite the pandemic. Our courts have remained open every day, and we continue to consider safety for all a priority. Our jury trials have resumed. We've averaged about 3 to 4 trials per week. We've pulled in 4 grand juries as well. 97 jury panels have been summoned this year, which equates to about 3,700 prospective jurors walking into the Justice Center since March. While some restrictions remain in place for our foreclosures, others have resumed. Our foreclosure department indicates that 150 foreclosures are still on hold due to the moratorium. 171 have resumed and are currently in the hearing process. In addition, in the last 2 months alone, 50 new civil mortgage foreclosures have been filed, and 80 cases have been reinstated to date. In addition to our foreclosure, we have magistrates that deal with civil stalking protection orders that come in from the public, and these hearings are held for the same on a daily basis. To date, we've had 334 hearings that have been held between the 6 magistrates. These numbers continue to rise each year, and they can demand up to about 40 hours a month of a magistrate's time. In addition, our mediation departments completed about 228 of the 253 referred cases this year. Mediations divert cases from court hearings and help to resolve them faster and more efficiently. Right now, they're at about 74% of these cases being successfully mediated. In addition, we have the probation department that serves the Common Pleas Court, the probate court, and the municipal courts. 10 new staff have been hired to replace vacancies as well as fill new positions, and these positions are funded solely with grant dollars, and there's no cost to the general fund or the taxpayer dollars. In 2021 alone, 4 new grants were sought and received, adding an additional $635,000 to our total grant funding. We supervise 1,964 offenders in the community, and these are all types of supervision from pretrial release up to judicial release from prison. In 2021, the jail noted that they processed in 4,971 new arrests. Only 117 of these were probation violations, which is indicative that our supervision strategies are working. The department gets audited yearly through the state of Ohio, and this year they scored a 99%, even with our pandemic measures in place. We do have 2 probation officers that supervise only child support offenders for the felony non-support docket. This docket's managed by Judge Chris Cook that's with us. In 2021 to date, they've collected $616,935.85 in back-ordered child support. In the last 3 years, they've assisted in collecting $2,432,029.11. In addition, we have a unit that writes only reports, and this unit has completed 800 reports to date for the court this year. Despite the pandemic, our community service projects have continued. They distributed meals to veterans at Thanksgiving and helped place flags on the bridges for Veterans Day. Last year, they collected items for the Valor Home at Christmas. And this year, we collected shoes for those in need as well and collected over 300 pair. They held a bake sale this year over at the Justice Center and raised $1,150, and these funds were donated to provide back-to-school supplies for Lorain County children in need. Giving back to the community is important to us, and these acts build relationships with the providers as well as the people in the community. Thanks to our technology and teamwork, our specialized dockets and court programs continued during the pandemic. The Wellness Court under Judge James Moraldi had its first graduate. Veterans Court under Judge Walther had 10 graduates, and Recovery Court under Judge John Moraldi had 14 graduates. In addition, Recovery Court received a new federal grant this year, and the Wellness Court received a new state subsidy grant, and both courts are continuing with their original subsidy grants as well. We have the felony non-support docket that's headed by Judge Chris Cook. They've continued to force the child support and payments as noted earlier. And Judge Cook also runs the driver's license reinstatement program. He has helped, this court and he have helped approximately 500 individuals obtain their driving privileges back in Lorain County. This year, he also held a one-day clinic in which 115 individuals appeared at the Justice Center, and 91 of them were able to get driving privileges reinstated with help from the court and the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles. The General Division also works in conjunction with multiple community agencies in an effort to help reduce crime. These agencies are noted above. To note particularly, we assist the Sheriff's Department with a yearly flat payment that's provided to house offenders that are sent to the jail instead of prison. Our grants also help fund a position at the jail that helps offenders transition out of jail back to the community. The grant also helped with the funding for the MAT program by providing equipment needed for that program. We also fund a position at the Lorain County Crime Lab, and we pay for the drug testing that they complete there. In addition, our judges regularly present seminars to the members of the Bar Association to help keep the attorneys apprised of changes to law and procedure and to assist them with being better practitioners. We also help verify that the court-appointed counsel meets standards set through the Ohio Public Defender's Office to assist indigent defendants in the county. For the municipal courts, we provide supervision for all of the municipal courts, and we provide a team member for the U.S. Marshals. At this point, I'll turn the presentation over to Deb Tansey, who will provide some information on our financials.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Casey.
morning.
To begin, I just wanted to give you an overview of how we developed our budget. The first administration seeks input from our departments to determine needs, legislative changes, or challenges for the upcoming year. Next, we prepare a working budget for the administrative judge to review. We discuss and get feedback on additional considerations. A final draft is then prepared and presented to all of the judges at a judges meeting for approval or additional changes. This tax budget is then submitted to the Board of Commissioners for county budgeting purposes. The court continues to monitor for legislative changes or other challenges throughout the year to determine if any adjustments are needed throughout the year or for subsequent years. As a footnote here, this budget was prepared prior to the pandemic-fueled inflation rate of 5.4% that we're currently experiencing. The judges have not indicated that they think any changes are needed to this budget at this time. Our overall budget for 2022 is $8,883,460. Of this budget, our general fund request is $4,665,529. This budget is consistent with our 2021 budget request with an additional 3% for salaries and PERS and a 0.02% increase in supplies. Our general fund request represents 53% of our total budget. That's 1% decrease from 2021. And the remainder of our 2022 budget, $4,211,739, comes from grants and court fees. This portion of our budget represents 47% of our overall budget. so I'm going the wrong way. To further break this down, court and probation fines and fees make up 3% of the budget. Federal grants represent 3%. State grants represent 35%. That's up 2% over 2021. And special revenue accounts contribute 6%. Sherry has already highlighted the additional grants that we have sought and received for the upcoming budget year, so in the interest of time, I will not repeat those here. My final budget slide here is information from other comparable counties in the state. Butler County, the 7th largest county, has a combined cost per case of $1,372. Stark County, the 8th largest county, has a combined cost per case of $1,296. And Lorraine County, as the 9th largest county, we have a combined cost per case of $955. This further illustrates that we're good stewards of the tax dollars that are entrusted to us. All right, I'll let Sherry wrap this up, sorry.
I'll conclude for the general division. The general division remains a good steward with the funds that are provided. Our budget is reasonable, and it is necessary to be able to continue to provide our constitutionally ordered services. We have secured new grants and assist the court and other agencies, in turn saving money for our county. Our departments assist the county in collecting fees, fines, and child support. Our budget is lower than comparable counties, as noted, and although our budget is lower, our caseloads are similar to or higher than those same counties, and our cost per case is considerably lower. We ask that the 2022 budget be approved as submitted. Thank you for your time and consideration. We'll take any questions.
Yeah, if I could, on the grants front, I guess I'd like to drill down a little bit more on that. I guess I would expect the percentage coming from the feds to be a little bit higher, but I'm just curious on the grants front whether we're seeing reductions in grant opportunities and grant amounts, or whether it's staying the same. And any thoughts on that?
I would say they've been increasing, but many of them are competitive. So federal grants are more difficult to come by. And we don't have a dedicated grant writer, or so, it's always Sherry, myself, or, one of the probation officers generally that are trying to write grants and look for grants.
Except for our technology grant you're forgetting about.
Oh, and Judge Cook got us a technology grant last year.
$120,000
Yes.
from the Supreme Court.
It was, yes, used as to upgrade our courtroom technology, so it worked
And
out
also
well.
on the grants front, are we seeing straight grants, matching amounts changing?
A lot of them are reimbursements, so we have to spend the money first, and then they reimburse us.
Right.
So that's a little juggling act that we have to do.
But have you seen it increase on the state front as far as grants?
Yes, and
Seems like the new administration's been more receptive to those approaches.
they are, and I think the money does come down from the Fed and goes to the state, and then it comes
right.
down through us, to us, which I think is why we have had a small increase. Normally, many of our state grants are kind of static, and we have seen small increases, and I think that's probably due to additional federal money.
Yeah, I was just concerned if we were seeing those slowing or dropping down, or. no?
Not really, not
Okay.
really. I do think they're increasing slightly.
Okay.
And I'm hoping for more.
Any other questions from the commission?
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to ask about the whole driving privilege arena, because I know that was something that I guess even when I was in the legislature, it used to be perplexing to me, because people don't pay child support or whatever, and they lose their driving privileges. And I always thought that never made sense, because you want people to go to work and, be able to pay their child support, right? So I'm just wondering, because it seems like you've made a lot of progress in the area of getting their driving privileges back for some folks. I'm sure there's lots of restrictions and limitations and things of that nature, but I was just curious how we're approaching that, or how you're approaching that.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Lundy, and you're preaching to the choir. I can't imagine a worse policy to make people who have financial obligations more difficult to meet those, particularly, as you point out, relative to child support issues. But it really goes deeper than that. It's single mothers trying to provide, parents trying to get their kids to school. And the biggest problem that has to be overcome is that these people drive anyway. They're going to drive anyway. It's the number one charged crime in Ohio for misdemeanors, driving under suspension. And if you talk to any of the judges in Leary Muni, Lorraine, when I was over in Lorraine Muni, we would process thousands of these cases. And so the concept is, let's get these people something legal to drive on, and let's get them insured. And every person who comes through my court to get privileges, before we even consider them, they have to show us proof of insurance. So we're getting them insured, we're getting them driving, and I'm very liberal as far as, I shouldn't use that word, I'm very progressive as far as, I'm very progressive as far as getting people the ability to drive for work, school, medical appointments, if they need counseling. And we don't break the law, but we bend the law to get people driving, even when there's some question about whether the BMV really likes it. But the bottom line is they're driving legally, they're insured, they can go to work, and it's a program. And if they can't, there's a $50 fee to participate in the program. If they can't pay it, we waive it for them. So my staff, along with administration, has made a concerted effort to help Lorraine County citizens. If anybody in Lorraine County can apply the program, and we will do what we can to help them get, many times we help them get their actual driver's license back, but if not, we get them privileges. And as Sherry pointed out, the BMV in conjunction with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles sent an employee. We had over 100 people in 4 hours appear at the Justice Center to seek licenses, and we were able to accommodate over 90 of them. So it's something that I'm passionate about. I want to continue. It makes a difference in people's lives, and it's something that's important. So appreciate you pointing it out.
I know my insurance agent has told me many times that for folks who have their driving privileges, it's very alarming how many people don't have insurance, out there on the road. So I'm sure we see that come up a lot. I know in the presentation there was talk about stalking type issues
Yep.
and things of that nature. And I know that's always a great concern. I know during the pandemic, it seems like we certainly have seen more incidents of abuse and things of that nature going on. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that and how the pandemic maybe is impacting those types of cases and situations and abuse. And
I don't know if I'm qualified to make exactly that comparison. I would say the numbers have escalated, as Ms. Clauser pointed out, but that's been consistent from the day we started doing these. Every year, the request for civil stalking protection orders increases. Did domestic violence cases go up over 2020 during the pandemic? I think the answer is yes, but again, I would not feel comfortable absolutely making that correlation. But we take those seriously, and they provide an opportunity for people who feel that they're in harm or stalked or being harassed, an opportunity. At least, they're not perfect. People still offend even with those orders, but it's something. And generally, people comply with them for the most part.
And on that same topic of the pandemic, I guess, is there much being done remotely, or are we, is it 50-50? Is it 75 in the court and 25 remote, or very limited remote?
Right now, there's very few remote employees working remotely. In fact, I would say when early, and I'm going to sort of be a little loose with my dates, but by the March, April, May, when people started getting vaccinated, and our vaccination rates are probably 90%, would you say? We basically brought everybody back. The Supreme Court has directed us to work remotely, provided resources for us, but we, particularly in trials and courts, you've got to be here, and our staff has to be here. So we did pretty much end any remote working effective in the late spring, early summer. When the Delta variant hit and things started getting worse again, we went back to some remote workers. I had, on average, I have 5 employees, 1 employee, 1 day a week working remotely. A couple of the other judges did, some didn't. Our probation department we had an outbreak about a month ago maybe, where we had about 10 to 15% of our employees with COVID, where we then went into 2 shifts, where 1 shift would come in and 1 shift work remotely. But as of now, there's very little remote working going on, and I think probation's back full. Is that correct? Are they back now full? Yes. So there's no remote working in the probation department. Some of the judges occasionally do. Again, I haven't fully stopped it in my court. 1 day a week, occasionally, and that's only if we don't have trials. If we have trials, everybody's there. So the remote working is not a substantial issue at this point for any of the judges or the departments. Do you want, real quick, I'm sorry, Commissioner, Sherry, did you want to add anything on that?
I would only add that prior to the pandemic, we did have pre-sentence investigation workers that were permitted to work from home due to office space restrictions. So they are continuing to work remotely a couple of days a week. And I would only add that we are continuing to use the technology, that even though we're back in court, we are still using remote technology for office visits with offenders, for court hearings, anything with the prisons, the jail, because the jail have had some COVID issues. So although we have staff that are back, we are still using all of the technology that we put into place during the pandemic.
One thing I want to add, that's a great point, and I think that you probably have seen this, or maybe the sheriff's has gotten some feedback. The sheriff's office created 2 media rooms for us. So now, prior to the pandemic, we were bringing dozens, sometimes 50 prisoners a day, transporting them. Sheriff's deputies had to transport these individuals, guard them, feed them. Often they would sit in the Justice Center for hours for a 10-minute hearing, transport them back. That's all done. Other than trials or a rare case where we really need somebody physically in the court, which is not common, our communications with individuals in the jail is almost all remote. And again, it saves the cost, the effort of the safety of having to transport these people. So it's a huge improvement, and that won't change. And some of the other things we do remotely with regard to pretrials, having lawyers come in by Zoom, things like that, those things won't change. They've made us more efficient. I think they've saved costs to the county. So we continue to use that.
And if I could, just another question. I know we keep talking about the pandemic, but it's the epidemic that's a real problem in the county. Pretty large percentage of drugs somehow or mental health issues entering into a lot of the cases that end up in the court system.
They're both very significant problems. Substance abuse is substantially more of a problem than SMI, serious mental health issues. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the numbers are 30% or so of every person booked into Lorraine County Jail has some mental health issue, and 65 to 70% has a substance abuse. We see it in almost every case, whether they're theft-related cases, assault cases, robbery cases, that there's a drug element. Even if they're not charged with a drug offense, there's a drug element in many cases. The recovery court, the veterans court, the wellness courts are all created to try to deal with that. Our probation department has tremendous resources. The CBCF is a lockdown facility right by the jail that we can send offenders to try to get sobriety and new tools and try to improve their lives. So there's a lot we can do, but it's a huge problem. And if I had an answer, I probably would be somewhere warmer. I don't have a clue. I don't have an answer for you other than we deal with it like all court systems the best we can, and as you're dealing with it for the county the best we can. But it's an issue.
How about seating juries and seating jurors? I mean, has that been a challenge also?
That's a great question, because we anticipated it would be. We had a hiatus for trials from mid-November to about mid-January for about 2 months, where we actually didn't have any trials. And there was a couple other times. We anticipated when we started bringing jurors back there was going to be problems. We anticipated having trouble seating grand jurors based upon what you've just laid out. That issue did not come to fruition. We had citizens showed up almost in exactly the same numbers as pre-pandemic. I think part of it was people wanted to get out, people wanted to serve, they wanted to, be social again, and that's just my own anecdotal observation. But we did not have any problem, and we have not had problems. I mean, we don't get a perfect show up. I don't know what, about 50%, 60% would you say show up for subpoenas? So, but the pandemic did not cause us problems with regard to seating grand juries or petit juries for our trials. It's not been an issue. Lorraine County citizens have stepped up, and it's not been an issue.
Judge, can I add something on that?
Sure.
I would just add to that the administration did work with the health department to make sure that we had all types of health precautions put into place for jurors coming into the buildings, and we included that in our literature that went out so that they were made aware. And anybody that called in that had concerns, we could tell them what measures we had put into place and how we were sanitizing the rooms daily, that we had masks and shields available, that we had the plexiglass put up, that we changed our whole process as to how we brought jurors in. So the process, yeah, we're doing temperature checks, but the process is actually faster for the jurors. They don't sit around as long as they used to. So, and the judges all cooperated. They may not have wanted to have cooperated, but they cooperated with us on processing them in quicker to get them up to the courtroom. So,
We took, that's a great point. The measures we took gave the community a sense of, I think, comfort with that we were going to keep them safe. And to my knowledge, and I don't know this for sure, we have never heard that a juror has contracted COVID for coming and serving. I'm not aware, I'm not saying it never happened, but we're not aware of that. And we've really go out of our way to protect our jurors and to make it a safe experience, but we've not had any problem. So it's worked out well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hung, Chairman, and the other commissioners. We appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, at this Okay, we have resumed from break and our meeting is back in session. We have Domestic Relations Judge Sherry Glass is here, and Tim Weitzel, Interim Court Administrator, and Fiscal Deputy Kristen Richardson. Welcome.
Thank you. And you just did my job. I'm just here for the welcome. I'm Judge Sherry Glass, and I am actually standing in for Judge Swensky. Judge Swensky is the administrative judge this year. However, she is trying to get over here. She's in the middle of something. I do believe that at the end of the presentation, if she makes it here, she is part of the presentation and wanted to make some comments. I'm not necessarily prepared to do that, but I am prepared to answer any questions and help the presenters out in any way I can if Judge Swensky is not able to be here. So I'm not part of the presentation. I'm the welcoming crew or the thank you crew. So again, I'm Judge Sherry Glass here on behalf of Lorraine County Domestic Relations Court and Judge Frank Janik and Administrative Judge Swensky. Thank you for this opportunity, and at this time, I will still introduce our presenters, and that is, I believe to my left, we have Tim Weitzel. Tim Weitzel is our interim court administrator, and then to my right, we have Kristen Richardson, and she is our interim deputy court administrator. So again, although I'm not necessarily part of the presentation, if anyone knows me, I like to talk. So you might not want me to do that because we're on a time limit. But at the end, although I don't have anything prepared, I am definitely ready, willing, and able to be part of any discussion, explanation, or any questions that might come up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. We appreciate this opportunity to present our budget this morning. And on behalf of all three judges, thank you for this opportunity. As you know, we are, as Domestic Relations Court, a dual jurisdiction court. So we handle all the domestic cases. We handle all the juvenile cases. And as you can see, there's an abundance of different court proceedings that we take on very seriously for domestic and juvenile. We basically conduct all the matters of a general division and a municipal court all in one. And as a result of all those duties, we do have a significant amount of staff for us to be able to accomplish those roles in the most efficient manner. What I do know is that we take every duty very seriously as a court, not only to provide public safety, but to make sure we're doing it in the most cost-effective manner. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning about Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. 2 years ago, we were accepted as the 15th court in the state of Ohio to be a JDAI court. And what this has done for us is provided us with 30 years of data on effective juvenile justice practice. So helping us recreate the wheel, recreate the way that we provide services to the youth and families of Lorain County. Because we know that they're changing over the course of time. We know that the dynamics and the problems that the families we serve don't stay the same over the course of 20 years, and we have to change with them. So we have utilized that data to change, to reimagine, to provide programs that are very effective for the youth and families that we serve, and create our own data and create our own system of information so that we can make data-driven decisions on the future of our court. And that's really what JDAI is. It gives us the insight and the ability to make decisions for our youth and families and to accomplish the purpose of detention without necessarily placing youth in detention. Now, we know that in the county right now, we're dealing with an uptick in violent offenses. We have a significant level of gun involvement with some of our youth, and we take that, our judges are committed to taking that extremely seriously, and we will hold those youth accountable. And we have a detention home for those youth that we utilize. JDAI shows that some of the lower risk youth that come to our attention, some of the misdemeanors, some of the youth that are identified as a low risk to reoffend, placing in the detention home doesn't necessarily accomplish what we always thought it did. It actually can have the reverse effect. It can decrease opportunities for graduation, increase mental health difficulties. It certainly increases trauma. So we're trying to maintain youth in the community, work with them closely, wrap services around them, and really change behavior and do the right thing for the youth that we're working with. So Ohio Probation Transformation, we were accepted into Ohio Probation Transformation as well, and that's a partnership between the Annie Casey Foundation and the Department of Youth Services, and they have provided us with some grant dollars to help transform, to help train our probation staff in evidence-based practice. because the role of PO nowadays at the juvenile level really has changed. We're not necessarily the hammer all the time. We're expected to go in the homes and maybe spend 45 minutes working with each youth, working with the parents to change behavior, to have a good relationship with the youth that we're working with, because that relationship is key to any change that we're going to see in the youth that we're working with. Reimagining juvenile justice, something that we're very proud of. We were chosen as one of 16 agencies in the country to be selected to participate in this curriculum. So we had 3 staff get trained to be trainers of the Reimagining Juvenile Justice curriculum. And we're proud to say that we just completed a first 7-week session with about 30 different stakeholders in the community to educate about juvenile justice and new practice, because we know that we need the community involved for this to successfully launch and for us to do our best work. JDI is heavily reliant on excellent communication, excellent community collaboration. And when they first, when we first got accepted, they came into our court and spoke to probably 60 different community partners. And what they found out was that we work pretty well together as a county. We work well with other counseling agencies, schools. So that's a strength. And we know that we need to continue to educate the county and community on our efforts for this to be successful, because it's not just a court program. JDI truly is a county culture. So for the last 2 years, we've really spent a lot of time in Zooms and meetings just educating and bringing people to the table to talk and make some group decisions. Finally, one of the primary recommendations of JDI when we became involved was to try to divert 60% of our cases. So we looked closely at our cases, and we saw that we had about 65% of our cases were misdemeanors. So as a result, effective May 24th, we started diverting. So since that time, we've had 506 referrals go through our diversion program. And the nice part about this is the prosecutors, we have an agreement with them that they are sending these cases directly to our assessment center, our assessment and resource center. We're there 7 days a week till 10 o'clock at night. We're there to provide services for the county. We want to help people in those times of need. The great part about this is we're not making families wait months and months to get services. When the time is right and when they need it, we're there to give it to them. We're there to provide and link and refer for services. And we work with them, and we try to get them linked with people in the community, and then we move on. And because true diversion is led by the community. So we're proud of our assessment center. We're there 7 days a week so that the police have an option in the heat of a moment to bring them a child to us so that we can work with them. Or if a school's having an issue, we're present. We want families getting the services they need so that they can ultimately change behaviors. So, commissioners, we're proud of our accomplishments. We're proud of the direction we're going. We want this to be a court that everybody can be proud of in the county. So, wanted to give you a little information on that. I am going to pass the presentation over to Kristen Richardson to give you some fiscal information. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Commissioners. So our court's total operating budget is just under $12 million. We receive the largest portion of our funding from general fund, and the remaining 26% comes from grant funding. We do have our own grant writer. We do our best to seek out as many grants as we possibly can. We, as opposed to the Common Pleas Division, we've seen a decrease in the amount of grants that are really available to juvenile court. The ones that we're seeing are very specific to certain things, such as expanding diversion, and that is actually one thing that we have applied for. So they're very specific to what they are offering for juvenile courts, and we are going for every single one. We receive the largest portion of our grant funding from Reclaim. So Reclaim is a funding initiative that encourages juvenile courts to develop effective programs in their community to help reduce the felony commitments to the Ohio Department of Youth Services. Funding is calculated by the number of felony adjudications and our bed days used at DYS. Essentially, the more commitments that we make to DYS, the less money is received. But this is important to our county. We've seen an increase in gun-related charges and serious offenses that will probably relate to more commitments to DYS. The court's general fund budget includes 7 accounts. We have 3 specialized dockets. We have juvenile drug court, family drug court, and mental health court. 2 of our accounts are dedicated to the operation of a juvenile detention center and shelter care facility. Those facilities are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As you can see from this chart, our overall appropriations are in line with our estimated expenditures. Our pathways and multipurpose accounts are strictly for building expenses, just for utilities and building costs. Our first account is domestic relations. This account covers personnel and costs for magistrates, judges, staff, administration, fiscal, grants, and IT. We have budgeted for increases in computer supplies, equipment, and software, as well as increases in competency evaluations. Our second account is juvenile services. This account covers all personnel for our juvenile clerk's office, probation department, mediation, investigation and referral, and transportation. We do have our own transportation department and our own fleet of vehicles. The transportation department is responsible for transporting youth to hearings, medical appointments, residential facilities, and also the Department of Youth Services. This is normally the responsibility of our local sheriff's department, who is also paid under the general fund. Our first 24/7 facility is our juvenile detention home. This account covers all personnel and operational costs, also overtime costs for our detention facility. It covers educational services, food services, 24-hour nursing and physician coverage, and all basic needs for youth in our care. 83% of this budget is for personnel and overtime costs. We recently switched to 12-hour shifts at the facility, which allowed us an opportunity to provide more coverage per shift while utilizing our existing staff. More staff per shift provides a safer environment for staff and residents in our care. Our food service accounts for a large portion of our budget. However, we do participate in the National School Breakfast, Lunch, and Snack Program through the Ohio Department of Education, which allows us to receive federal reimbursements that are paid directly to the county's general fund. Our second 24/7 facility is Turning Point Shelter. This shelter is licensed by the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. We're currently seeking accreditation to become a qualified residential treatment program. It is a co-ed short-term facility for abused, dependent, and neglected children, as well as domestic violence and human trafficking victims. This facility is also used in lieu of detention for children with certain mental health issues or disabilities where secure detention would not be appropriate. Turning Point Shelter also helps prevent unnecessary placements into foster care homes. This account covers all personnel and overtime costs. And we wanted to mention that Lorraine County Children's Services contributes funds each year toward the operation of this shelter. This year, $96,000 will be donated back to the county general fund. Our Child Support Department. This account covers all personnel and operational costs. 100% of these costs are reimbursed and paid back to the county's general fund. 83% of the budget covers salary and fringe benefits for dedicated magistrates, support staff, and clerks. Indirect costs are for charges for square footage for office space utilized by that dedicated staff. Our last 2 accounts are for the facilities complex. We're requesting $23,300 just to cover the cost of utilities, building maintenance, and pest control services for the multipurpose and pathways building. The multipurpose building houses our assessment and resource center that provides after-hours assistance to local law enforcement and families dealing with unruly youth. This program is funded by Reclaim Ohio. We've also collaborated with the prosecutor's office, local law enforcement, and other stakeholders to expand our diversion and intake services. This is all part of our vision of becoming a JDAI court. Personnel costs for diversion are also covered under our Reclaim grant. We are requesting a 4% increase from our 2021 budget. We have only requested 6 increases over the past 15 years. We've maintained our reputation of being fiscally responsible, and our requests reflect what is reasonable and necessary for the successful operation of our court. We appreciate your time and consideration and this opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Swensky, I see you've arrived. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you for having us here, and I apologize for being late. I am in the middle of a trial. But for giving us the chance to explain our process and why we're asking for that increase. Again, we are being fiscally conservative, but we have been hit with a spike in gun violence in the county with juveniles, and we have a large number that we are sending to DYS. Now, there's a complicated funding formula for that, and when we send certain kids who have lower level felonies, they sometimes pull from our reclaim grants, so we lose money. So we're in the process. It's very complicated to explain. It involves bed days and leap years, and if the moon is full, and the third Thursday of the month, if they return something. It's a crazy and very complicated formula. But we have to make sure that we're protecting the community, and we are sending a lot of kids into DYS more so than usual. They are high-level felonies and they are gun offenses, but all 3 judges have those cases, and so we're preparing for what's to come and what we believe is going to happen when we get our new reclaim numbers. So that's all I would have added. I don't know if anybody even said that. I apologize. But these are the 2 who know what's going on. And again, if we don't need that money, we return it. The question sometimes people ask is, why don't you just come back to us when you need the money? That doesn't work, because we won't know as these things happen until they happen, until Reclaim reports to us and says, well, you sent too many kids to DYS, so your Reclaim grant is dropped to X amount of dollars. So we don't know that until the last minute. So we have done what we can. We've not replaced people. We didn't have to replace people. And as I'm sure Ms. Richardson said, salary is the majority of our budget. So that's all I wanted to add. I don't want to take your time, but certainly we can answer any questions.
If I could, when you talk about the increase in the number of gun-related cases now that you're dealing with, is this a spike or an increase in gang activity?
Well, there's some of that. Now, the issue is we have to be careful as judges, because some of the kids, we have information that they're in gangs, but the prosecutor hasn't pled it as a gang spec. So I can't even increase time. I have to go with whatever they plead to or whatever they're adjudicated delinquent on. So, we have received information from LPD and EPD, for instance, that there's been an increase in gang activity. But as far as my disposing these cases for juveniles, I can't remember last time I had a gang spec. We get the gun specs. The specification is something that gets added to the charge, and they get additional time for that. So, for instance, if a kid brandishes a gun or uses a gun in a felony or what have you, they serve time for the gun spec first. So that's either 1 year or 3 years at DYS, and then they serve time for their underlying offense. So that's what's called a specification. So prosecutors can put a gang spec on, but that spec has to also then be proven. So it's just like another thing that the prosecutor has to prove. So they don't always put that on because the kids are going to get X amount of time anyway. So it's my belief, my personal opinion, is that there has been an increase in gang activity, maybe related to the pandemic. Lorraine didn't have school last year. The kids didn't have a lot of pro-social activities. So my personal opinion is yes. I do not have the numbers to support that, so it may or may not be anecdotal.
Yeah, because I know I had the opportunity to attend a session over at Lorraine High School, and they were talking about a spike in gang activity, and
Yep.
but I guess the greater root of the cause is just not having the family structure, or the single parent is probably working 3 jobs to pay the bills, so there's nobody to keep eyes on, what's going on at home and things of that nature.
You are correct. That is definitely one of the factors that is involved with that. And then there are a tremendous number of other factors. I mean, but that is lack of supervision, whether it's a two-person, two-family, two-parent household or single-parent household, that is certainly an issue. We have various programs, we have services, we have things we can offer the juveniles, but they have to come to our attention at that point.
I just wanted to mention, I was at that.
The microphone.
Oh, I was at that presentation as well, and on behalf of the court, and I think it was very clear, based on what they presented to us with their stats and their information, that gang activity is on the rise, and like with the juveniles, and as Judge Swensky said, we are anticipating that we are going to get those charges, but it takes some time, as we saw in that presentation, to gather that information, and they have to prove it. So once they gather that information, charge it, and bring it to our attention, then again, we're anticipating those type of charges. We've already seen an influx in the youths and guns, and we have already had to send those individuals to the Department of Youth Services, which affects our budget in a negative way. But
Yeah, and again, I made a joke about how complicated that funding formula is, but it does involve bed days. It involves whether they pled to an F1 or an F2, or whether it's a lower level felony. Well, I don't care, and I'm sure Judge Glass and Judge Janik doesn't either. If it's an F5, but we believe that kid's a danger, we're gonna send them. And that means we may lose money at the back end, we don't care. We already take into account a child's rehabilitation. We're very strong on that, we're a very progressive county, but we also protect the county. And so we have so many needs where things like our probation officers go into homes one at a time. That's crazy. To go into some of these homes, and there is single one PO going in at a time. There are changes that we need to make it safer for the POs, and part of that is reflected in our budget request.
And I know I've said this before, and I think I said it even at the Lorraine event, that, sometimes the community looks at it and says, well, we got to go after these gang members. But I think what we have to remember is that there's still the youth in our community.
Yes.
And we are in a very critical window of trying to reach them. The reality is that not all of them can be saved, but some can. And so we shouldn't look at them as, kind of being the enemy. We need to look at them as these are the youth in the community, and they've been misguided or went down the wrong path, and why in the world they decided to pick up a gun certainly is not the right road to be on. But we have a responsibility to make sure that we hopefully get them on the right path. And I think in general, when somebody has to enter the correction system, I've always felt like it hardens their heart. It makes them a different person. And so I think anything we can do to hopefully save those who can be saved, that we do it.
I appreciate those comments, and that is true for us also. We recognize that, and sometimes it does click for them, but it's much later, after they're out in life and out in the world, and the world beats them around a little bit more. Not that they haven't been beaten up by the world in the first place, but sometimes it clicks later on. Like Judge Glass runs a family drug court, I run a juvenile mental health court, Judge Janik runs a juvenile drug court. Sometimes those kids come back to us later and said, I didn't understand what you were saying, but then I got it, so.
Yeah, I would just, in response to your comment about hardening some of these youth, absolutely, and with the JDI discussion that we had earlier, that's really what we're looking at. If you remember the picture up there of the young child getting fingerprinted, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to unnecessarily incarcerate, unnecessarily traumatize certain youth, but we are always going to hold, the youth that have been involved with guns and violence accountable. In regards to the gangs, where we're seeing it is at our detention home. We've had to make some adjustments at times where youth of different gangs come into the facility, and we have to be very understanding of that and have our eyes open, because that can lead to some issues there at times. So our staff does a nice job keeping some separation there and identifying any risk. And then at our Crossroads program, we have an evening reporting center that we pick youth up 3 o'clock right after school, and we have them until 8 o'clock at night, sort of that prime time crime time, where we have them under our supervision for counseling and for services, all at our facilities. But yes, those are our highest risk youth, and at times there could be youth there from different gangs. So our staff are trained to watch out for that as well and make adjustments as needed.
I mean, I think we have 2 or 3 kids in the DH right now who have gunshot wounds. We're caring for one, we have to care for him because we have to detain him. And I think there may be an SYO or some such thing, but, and then I have another kid, one of my kids, he's sitting there with a bullet in his head still. So we have to keep them separate. There's West Side and South Side and Lorraine. I don't know what Elyria has. But it can be a real challenge sometimes, keeping the ratio correct on the floor of the detention home, the workers to people, and then keeping those kids separated.
Okay. Commissioner Moore, anything? Okay, thank you very much for coming
you.
in.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Why do you all look tanned? What's up? You guys look tanned.
Okay, welcome back. We are moving on to the coroner, Dr. Frank Miller, with his administrator, Dawn Quirick. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've provided, we actually have a revised budget we brought today too, because this year we're going big. And so we are going to need more money. The first page we gave you was some statistical information just to show that as of last year, we had 882 cases we had dealt with. This year, we're already on 1,062. We're going to have probably over 500 coroner cases this year. Last year, it was more like 380. A lot of people are needing transported this year. A lot of people are needing stored. So we are going to have some expense increases because moving these people around, I have to pay the livery service. Our morgue, we were doing pretty well for years. We had a morgue in Lorraine, didn't charge us anything, let us use their cooler, but now they're full all the time because of all the excess deaths. It's a cooler for a business that has a crematory, and so there's a lot of funerals going through there now. So we're not able to utilize that as much. We're having to identify more people, find their family. They're staying not 2 or 3 days, but sometimes a week, sometimes 4 weeks. So as you'll see this year, I actually have added capital requests because I need to do something about morgue space. But back to the other, our statistics are up, so our cases are up, our autopsies are up, our transporting bodies are up, our overdoses are not going down. Looks like this year we might have as many as 165. We've already got 109 year-to-date for September 30th, and September 30th of 2020, it was 105, so it did not go down this year. Some years the overdoses go way down, but since 2019, they've gone up again. So we do have quite a bit of work to do, and we have additional variable cost expenses to pay for the additional people who we've worked with. So our budget, which is the other page spreadsheet, you'll see this is a new number. I've adjusted my salary 1.1 3/4% under the state law. I did put in a 5.9% COLA in the salary line for the other 9 employees, in line with many of the COLAs that have been announced on October 1st. And of course, PERS and other things go up. Our expenses are going up. We're going to more scenes. We're using more mileage reimbursement. We're transporting more people. We're doing a lot more toxicology tests. These toxicology tests, if it's an overdose, usually it's over $400 per case. So we're way up on that. So our budget's there. You can see it. It is an increase from what was submitted in May, but we continue to have a big year following May, which you never know how many people you're going to process, but it certainly is going up. It is not going down. Although the statistics do wander around a little bit from year to year, I don't anticipate it going down. Now that we have 2 level 3 trauma centers, also in the current area with all the ICUs full, just last week we got 2 people from Richmond Heights because Elyria has room no one else does. So they go to the Richmond Heights ER and they end up in Elyria and die, which we usually can just manage with a telephone investigation because they're in the ICU for being very sick. But one was an overdose and one was not, for example. So we're actually gaining people in our county a little bit. So, and some of the traumas that normally would have gone out to Toledo or Cleveland are being kept here because there are trauma centers at Mercy and UH Elyria now. And so some of them pass away as well. I just want to talk a little bit more about, so you can see on the first page is a summary of what's going up. The toxicology, the testing is all going up. The transportation's going up. The storage is going up because when I store people at university hospitals, I have to pay a fee. And when I do an autopsy, I have to pay a fee. So both of those costs are up this year. But I need to do something about a morgue. I just had EMA this week get me a trailer. So I have a portable morgue trailer in county now that I can borrow for about 3 weeks, and then I have to give it back, and if I need another one at that time, I'll have to get another trailer. That's managed between the EMAs and also managed at the state EMA level. But I need to figure out more morgue space. Either I need to buy a trailer for our county, which is one of my mass fatality preparation goals as well, or I need to put in some cooler space. We just moved this year from one office to another, but that precludes putting any coolers at the office we're at now. So I've just put in some rough numbers. We got some quotes on a trailer, it'd be about $63,000. So the additional morgue capacity line, I put $72,000, just because I don't know what we're gonna do. We could add permanent physical space, and then if I need a trailer, I'll get one from the state, or we could add the trailer, and then if I need it for mass fatality, I can move it around, plus I have the space. Our morgue in Lorraine has volunteered to staff this small trailer for us if needed. And also the other thing is, for all hazards preparation as well, I need to put my office on a generator in case the power is out at the office building. So I think it would be nothing more than a 24 kilowatt generator. It should be somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 depending on the electrical work needed for the generator and the transfer switch. So that's pretty much what I have. About $996,000 for predicted operating expenses and salaries, and then I need to probably get about $100,000 so I can solve my morgue capacity situation and get a preventive generator for my office. So.
You might want to talk to Dan Gross.
Oh, I would.
Have you talked to him already yet, or?
This is all stuff I've started working.
Okay.
And the generator I've been thinking about. The morgue became important this week.
Well, that's something simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you talk to Dan, he'll hurry up and get the ball rolling on that, and then the morgue.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with a trailer. I think you need it, right?
Yeah, I think that would be best because it's the most flexible. We can move it around to a mass fatality site, or we can use it just for storage at a fixed site that we already have. So I think that would be a good solution. Some other things that, occurred to me today, actually, is to see there are certain buildings that county owns that already have coolers in them, and maybe those coolers can be removed and placed somewhere else, or I could actually use the cooler where it is. I'm thinking of places like Gargus Hall, the cooler at Golden Acres.
So the Democrats can vote. Okay, I get it.
No.
That's a dead person joke there,
Yeah.
Matt. if you
But
missed
anyway,
it.
I'm assuming that as a catering business, it has a cooler and a freezer that's probably
I
not
think
being
they
used
got
to
rid of
store
all- They
back.
had an auction there. And
Oh,
got
it's
rid of all
gone
of them.
too? Okay.
Yeah, so are you, because I talked about this 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and we were trying to do something with EMH, but then they backed out.
Yeah.
I mean, are you looking at having a separate building just for
No,
a
I'm not.
morgue, or?
I'm looking to add on, in Lorraine, it's a complicated thing because the fellow there has a cooler that I'm routinely allowed to store 3 people in. Usually we have 4 to 5 people. And they have their own, we've had as many as 16 people there and it only holds 7. But we can work with, but he rents, so we have to work with his landlord, put a county asset in a rented space of a private business, so it's complicated. I'll need help, from Dan Petticord and others on that. Or we could find a county space to put a cooler in. The warehouse has a lot of floor space. I don't know what the fate of the county warehouse is. Last I heard it's being torn down, so we wouldn't want to put a cooler there. But I want to work with Dan and whoever else is necessary to find storage for about 6 to 8 people that is my cooler space.
That's all you need, about that much? That's
Yeah,
all?
8 people I think would cover, because we're usually short about 2 or 3. So if I get one for 8, that probably would help me quite a bit. And we can add it to the current cooler in Lorraine. We could have a 3rd site. Adding anything at Elyria other than a trailer in the back is probably out. I do have arrangements at Elyria to bring in a state trailer and plug it in should we need it. I already had that electric work done years ago. But I need a semi-permanent solution for my storage needs, because the storage needs are just going up. It was a bad crush during the January, February period, and then this last Delta surge added to the number of people who needed stored somewhere. But with population changes and the number of people who are without a doctor, without a next of kin readily identifiable, we're going to need to store more people on an ongoing basis. So.
You mentioning the COVID and the Delta variant leads me to my next question. When the recorder was in here, he had mentioned his Recorders Association had done the research on how the American Relief Plan dollars would qualify. Have you heard anything on that, if you can get help for your generator and your storage?
I don't know. I definitely can link them to increased, at least for the morgue, I can make a straight connection between COVID, the number of people that need stored, and my overflow. So that probably would tie back, but I don't know much about either
What
one.
helps us on our end is
Yeah.
if you do the work on it and
Okay.
bring it over so
Sure.
Dan Petticord can look over the legal end and just make sure it qualifies. But if you get it started for us, it makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Lundy?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, Dr. Miller, Coroner Miller, that you certainly need upgrades, some serious upgrades. And, I just want to make sure that, anything we do, that we do it the right way. I don't like piecemealing things or putting Band-Aids on things. Prefer we do it the right way. I know Davis said that he's had conversations in the past about morgues. I know I've had conversations in the past about morgues, and it always seemed like it was something that just really didn't go too far. But, this is something that, we need to start taking a look at, how to take the next step forward, I guess, and the best approach, at least for now. And, if you're saying you need something for 8, I'd probably prefer to do 12 or 15 or, something of that nature. Exactly. So that we make sure that we plan properly, and all of a sudden we don't run into an issue. So that's something that I certainly believe can be tied into the American Rescue Plan dollars, because there's no question that COVID has just compounded, and he is a public health emergency, obviously, and has compounded the issues with space and for all the medical facilities and how they're able to utilize that space. But I know when I had a conversation with you recently, you had talked about the alarming number of traffic fatalities. I didn't hear you mention that today.
Well, yeah, we're having a big year. Traffic is probably way up. We've had several double and triple fatals. Homicides are up. Suicides are holding their own. But the homicides are way up this year. I mean, the city of Lorraine itself is higher than the county total over many years. So yeah, it's a high year for MVAs. It's a high year for homicides. Suicides have not gone down, and the natural deaths. More and more people are being found after a few days, which usually requires us getting involved to store them. So.
Yeah, and very alarmed by what you project could be the number of overdoses as well, too.
Yes.
We're on pace to, I think, was it 138 or 132 or something
I
like
think
that
it was
last year?
138 last year.
Right.
So if it crosses 145, it'll be the highest we've ever had.
Right,
So.
that's alarming.
Okay, so if you don't mind, with the board, I mean, if you could reach out to Dan Gross, maybe we'll get the ball rolling on
I'm
that.
going to start all this.
And then in regards to the morgue, what do you guys think? I think it'd be better to work directly with Dan Petticord, or have him present, or why do you guys? Because I don't want to just let this float.
Yeah, no, I'd like to get it addressed as soon as possible, and so to be able to go out if we have to, get some bids, because like I said, I guess I'd prefer that we, address something if we're going to go with some type of morgue trailer, that we make sure we get something that is, just more than sufficient.
Right. Well, the trailer we got the quote for, it's 16 expandable to 24. So that should be pretty good.
We don't need to bid that. I don't believe, because that's a specialty.
Yeah.
Well, we could bid it
Yeah.
out, but you're gonna,
But we could get some quotes easily because we've already called around.
okay.
And so,
And is that EMA provides the truck to pull it?
yeah, at EMA, if I needed a truck to move it, it's the trailer that we would get, any pickup truck, F-250 or heavy-duty truck can move it. So almost every fire vehicle, most of the EMA vehicles can pull it. So,
Okay, and I know the LEPC had their meeting and they're looking for a new vehicle just for that purpose. So
Oh,
this has been
yeah.
brought up already. All righty. Well, thank you very much for coming and presenting. We really appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and we saved the best for last.
All right.
Judge Walther, thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, my budget isn't very sophisticated. There's only, I think, 6 line items. If you look at, I believe that there is a mistake. If you look towards the bottom, there's an amount of $20,000 for travel. I mean, we don't have $20,000 of travel. It should be one line up for other expenses. So those other expenses is an allocation that comes through the commissioners for the payment of my civil commitment mental illness cases. The way that works is that you provide an allocation for that, and throughout the year, we bill the OMAS, the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and that they provide us monies up to a certain amount. Why the state of Ohio doesn't pay these at 100% is beyond me, but our allocation for this year is $17,168. So it's not quite our full amount of $20,000. And the way they calculate it, they do a 60-30-10 weighted analysis, 60% based upon the previous year's billings, 30% for 1 year before that, and 10% for the 1 year before that. And we've consistently gone up. I may have told you before that when I first became the probate judge, I think we had 20 mental illness cases, and last year we had 132. Wow. And that's in it's a 6-fold increase in over an 11-year span. My salary's been $14,000 for 12 years, and so it stays that's set under the Ohio Revised Code. The 635-918 is a little bit of an increase from last year. We keep getting additional duties that are added on by the General Assembly down in Columbus, and even the Supreme Court. And again, they make decisions down there, and unfortunately, most of the time, they don't send a check along with it when they make those decisions that have local impact. So we're at 14 persons in my office now. I don't know, the PERS is merely a numerical function of the salaries. That is whatever the salary is, it's some kind of percentage. The $5,500 that we have in supplies has been the same that we've asked for several years. Then $1,992 is for our typewriter. Can you believe that we still have typewriters, but there are some things that we still have to do by using a typewriter, that we have things that we have to fill in and put on that are not in any kind of form that we can print out on a computer. So we still have typewriters in our office. So I would really love someday to not have typewriters in my office. But it's just a necessity. But year after year, it lessens year by year. So I don't know if you have any questions. I offered once before that there's 620 duties assigned to the probate court, and I am willing to list them all here for you today.
You'll
Unless
mess
you're a
up the
speed
bet I got
reader,
with your
yeah.
wife.
What's that?
A speed reader or the disclaimer guy at the end of a commercial, and you zip through 620.
So I don't know if you have any questions. So,
No, I don't.
Yeah, not at this point. Seems like everything's running smoothly, and
yeah, we're pretty close to using up what was allocated for this year. We might have a couple of $1,000s left at the end of the year, which, will be turned back over to the general fund budget. So we'll see. And since the last time we met, I actually have had the opportunity to meet both Commissioners Hung and Moore outside of
Yes.
Outside of this, I met Commissioner Hung at the Sam Felton event at Central
Yeah.
Park, and I met Commissioner Moore out at the county fair, so.
Okay, well, thanks. I know she never hears this, but your wife was right. I said 8 minutes. She said less than 8, so it was 5 seconds less than 5 minutes. So
Oh, okay.
So I think you got to, the bet was you got to take her out to dinner. I just wanted to let you know that was the bet I made for you. So.
I'm gonna list those duties now. I think that'll save me, I don't know, $100 anyway, if I just list
Then
them
if
all here
you've been
for you.
over, she bought you dinner, see? So you might want to start reading that list. Look at her.
Oh, I don't have to read them. I can recite them all for you, so.
Thanks for coming in.
All right,
Thanks for coming
thank
in.
you.
Russell, we're going to keep rolling here, so don't cut the feed. Okay, moving on to B Clerk's
Thanks.
report.
All right, thank you.
Tuesday, November 2nd at 9:30, we'll have a TIF hearing. Wednesday, November 3rd, will be a commissioners meeting, and November 4th, we'll conclude our budget hearings.
Okay, we are at that wonderful part of the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Hung,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Present.